Tim Graham and Friends is brought to you by CTBK, CPAs and business consultants. CTBK is a leading accounting firm with a growing team of accountants and business consultants with roots in Amherst, New York. CTBK pairs every project with a focus on a human connection between its team and the client. For assurance, accounting, taxes, litigation support, and advice on mergers and acquisitions, CTBK is available and ready to solve any issue your business faces. For a consultation or to request a quote, call 716-630-2400. Again, that's 716-630-2400. CTBK, over a quarter century of proven accounting and business excellence for Western New York and beyond. That trumpet means only one thing. Gene Kershner is back on Tim Graham and Friends, brought to you by CTBK, CPAs and business consultants. Gene, of course, is the horse racing reporter for the Buffalo News. And we have a lot to talk about. We had a quick turnaround, as you always do, between the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness, which is Saturday at Pimlico in Baltimore. But Medina Spirit has been dominating the headlines since testing positive at the Kentucky Derby. But before we get into that, Gene Kershner, what was your takeaway from the Kentucky Derby? I guess without the positive test that really took away a lot of the excitement and the thrill that a Bob Baffert horse that a lot of people did not expect to do well, and yet did and won the race, of course. I guess let's stop there. Let's get your thoughts on the Kentucky Derby before the Medina Spirit steroid test comes back positive.
Well, it's pretty interesting, Tim, because I actually tweeted out on the way home at one of my rest stops, what I thought, my day after thoughts over, morning coffee. The first point I tweeted was, it's great to have fans back. They had 52,000 people there. It was almost like we were back in a normal sporting event situation. And it was great just seeing all the faces and, the pomp and circumstance that you get at the Derby. It was so weird last year in September not having that. The undercard races that day were terrific. The race before the Derby, there was a dead heat, which you don't, often see in racing. The race before that, there was just a horse that kind of was weaving in and out. Flagstaff, who won the Churchill Downs, which was tremendous. The fact that you could get an all-inclusive ticket if you were a patron that day, you could food and drink were free. I went up to get a mint julep and handed a $20 bill over, and they said, "What's that for?" And I was like, "The drink." And they came back and said, "No, everything's free." And I said, "Boy, this could be a good thing for major sporting events if that kills the lines or whatever."
But a bad thing for my column.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the editors give it a closer look.
I get it for the souvenir glass, obviously. And then my last thing, which I think maybe you'll find interesting, I said, never leave Bob Baffert off your ticket, no matter how you feel about him. So, kind of maybe not foreseeing, but to say, he's got a bit of a checkered past when it comes to drug positives, and his horse, he was on some of my tickets, in second and third, but he cost me the trifecta, obviously, and quite a bit of other bets. But I was with one of my colleagues on Thursday morning on the backside, and I usually visit his barn to get his take on his horse or what have you. And I asked my colleague who had been there a couple of days before me, what's Bob saying? Is he high on the horse? What's going on? He's like, nice, been talking him down all week. And that typically means with him that he's not as high on his horse as he has what I've seen in the past, even with American Pharaoh or Justify. And, that was the first leg of those races, that he was extremely high on those horses and really thought, he had something there. And then I've talked to him in years where he's had a horse like Medina Spirit, and he's just like, yeah, we're just happy to be in the race, and it's great to be here. My owners are really happy to be here, and it's always good that you can't win unless you're in it. So I found it kind of interesting that my colleague said that, and I was like, all right, let's go see John Sadler, because I was writing on Rock Your World and really liked that horse, and so I didn't spend the time that I probably should have to go over and hear what he had to say. But it's been nothing. It hasn't been a quiet week, that's for sure, in horse racing. And the thing is, he didn't have to go to the media or hold the press conference right away, because until the split sample comes back, the Kentucky Racing Commission they can't rule on it. There's no disqualification, and he didn't have to do it. But I guess he wanted to control the narrative. I think that's where it came down to, where he wanted to get out in front of it.
But did he?
His words, and I don't think he did a very good job of it, to be honest with you. And,
yeah, it's been comical, which is unfortunate for the sport, because the positive test is bad enough as it is. But it seems as though Bob Baffert in the days since Medina Spirit tested positive for the steroid has just said some things to bring some ridicule, I think, on his reputation and the sport. Namely, he originally said that a groom had taken a whiz on some hay, even though after taking some cough medicine, and that Medina Spirit ate that hay. And then since Bob Baffert has come out and admitted that there was an ointment that this steroid was present in, but that it was prescribed by a horse physician. He's been saying some really tinfoil hat kind of things, conspiracy theories, cancel culture he's mentioning. He had a comment that I saw in a video that was posted at the Louisville Courier website, in which he called it an injustice to the horse. Maybe Medina Spirit's getting ready to lawyer up. I don't know. But and then Bob Baffert also says, I do not feel safe to train. So Gene, I kick it back to you. I guess your thoughts just on that aspect of this before we get to Preakness and the fact that Medina Spirit is still in the field and the favorite, how Bob Baffert has handled this, and how you think it could impact his legacy, because people remember things like this. These are the things that catch into the average sports fan's brain, I think. I don't know. I think that, 10 years from now, people are going to be maybe making fun of Bob Baffert for the things he said, and not necessarily remembering. And I'm talking about the casual fan. How do you think this plays? How do you think it plays out?
He's the face of racing. If it was Todd Pletcher, would you guys know who Todd Pletcher is? And what was going on? Well, Todd Pletcher's won 5,000 races. He's had two Derby winners, and but the casual fan doesn't know who that is. Maybe for a split second when he wins it, for the third time or something, you'd maybe recognize him. But Bob's the face of the sport, and when you get out in front of something like this and start making excuses, and first thing he came out within 72 hours, no way he tested positive. Then he blames cancel culture, mysterious contamination. People are out to get him. Oh yeah, no, wait, we did give it to him, and we didn't know we were giving it to him. So he's used the excuse or the contamination excuse before, and has proven it in other horses, or has at least put doubt in the Racing Commission's eyes. Justify, who won the Triple Crown, tested positive after he won the Santa Anita Derby of scopolamine, which was a banned substance, and it never came out, and until after the Triple Crown, because the split sample that never came back in time, and the attorneys got involved, and they eventually cleared it because it was contamination due to something called Jimson weed that got into the feed and the hay in the barn, and it also happened to some other horses, and they were able to convince him. But he's used that excuse. And then last year, that two of his horses, Charlatan, who was a 3-year-old who won the Arkansas Derby, and Gamine, who was a filly, both tested positive for lidocaine, and they blamed the patch that his assistant trainer had on his arm that, somehow had this drug that got transferred to the horses somehow. And Arkansas, I guess, kind of just said, okay. And they went through, and he got past it, and it was a $1,500 fine. Therein lies the problem. There's really no oversight.
Wait,
commission.
$1,500 fine. Who is this?
That's
Tom
it.
Wilson?
Yeah, right. The same type of thing, but there's no regulatory body. Each state has their own regulatory commission on the drugs and sets their own standards. That's going to change in 2022. The Horse Racing Safety and Integrity Act was passed last year, and it will become the oversight regulatory body for safety and out of competition testing. And they have the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency will be overseeing that, same agency that did the Lance Armstrong testing. So a long answer to your question is, yeah, it's bad for the sport because he's the face of the sport. He seems to be making all kinds of excuses. And, when questioned about, the records, there has to be a paper trail. So number one, the prescription itself, for this Otamax that has the that beta methasone in it, would include the date, the instructions for use, and the veterinarian's name. The administration of it has to be reported both in Kentucky and California, because he was in California before the Derby and shipped in the week before, and then also in Kentucky. So they should have been it should have been reported that they were giving this drug to him. And then this prescribing veterinarian, who they haven't given the name of who that is yet, should have a record of dispensing that medication. So there's when questioned for the paper trail, where's the records? He just says, yeah, we've given them to Pimlico, and we will give them to the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission, but there's no evidence that he's given them to the Kentucky Commission yet. So it's just there's just a lot of questions, right, that are out there. I'm not a pharmacologist or a vet, so I don't know what the deal is, but there's just so many questions that it just doesn't look good.
Yeah, well, I'm curious your take on. My thought is that it's bad for racing as a television product, because this race happened 2 weeks ago, and now it's all in the news that the horse that won the race possibly disqualified, used steroids, whatever. But so now when you're watching the Preakness this weekend, and a horse is going to win that race, and we say, well, let's wait and see if these results come back in a couple of weeks. And it's a different situation, but similar to the horse, I'm forgetting the name, that got disqualified for running outside of its lane a couple of years ago. What do you think? I think that the horse that wins the race should be the horse that wins the race, and whatever you can do testing wise to get the tainted horses out of the race, go right ahead. But once somebody crosses that finish line, that should be who wins the race.
I agree with you, Jonah, but if you broke the rules to win the race, and the rules are pretty set in stone, then you should be disqualified. And that's really what it comes down to. And I think they're going to set records for television, because I think it's been in the media so much that I think they're going to have some pretty good viewership, because people are going to want to see, how is NBC going to spin this for a couple hours beforehand? And, are they going to have Baffert on so that we can see what he has to say? He's not coming to Baltimore, so because it'd be a distraction. But
I think to get distracted.
But
yeah, it's an injustice to all these horses they're not going to be focused.
But what do you think about Belichick? There's he's in his cheating, right, or his alleged cheating. Has that tarnished his reputation?
It has, but also when the Patriots win that Super Bowl, they get to keep that Super Bowl. You don't go back and give it to whoever they played that particular year. I think it was the Rams, maybe. But that's the weird thing about sports.
Yeah, I was talking more about reputation,
right?
Than giving back the trophy.
But let me ask about, because I don't know this about the horse racing industry, because it is obviously a betting industry, and one of the reasons why when a game is over in any of the four major sports, even if there was cheating, foot in the crease, we know all kinds of ways in which a rule was broken. Somebody would, in college football, there was the game where somebody got a fifth down, and scored a touchdown on it. There's all kinds of things that you can go back, but those games, it's like a rule in those sports. It stands. Once it's over, you can't go back and replay it. What is the horse racing industry's philosophy, especially because it is a betting sport? You go to the window, you cash that winner. Medina Spirit won that race financially for you on that ticket. If you had whatever, the payouts are all set. So I think I guess is my long-winded way of saying that in the other sports, they say, well, because of that, we have to keep it that way. But in what's the, is there an argument ever within the industry about how things like this should be handled?
Well, the way it's handled on the betting side is just what Jonah said. My horse crossed the line, I got paid. Unless there was a DQ in the race for something that happened within the race that was against the rules, i.e. maximum security 2 years ago when he came out. There's no refunds for the folks that have, including my ticket that's in my bag over here for Mandaloon, who came in second. If they disqualify Medina Spirit, I'm not getting paid. that money's been distributed out because it's a pari-mutuel betting. So while I went in the pool, the track takes its 20% payout, and the other 80% is distributed to the bettors. So the only thing that's redistributed is the purse. So the owners won't get the first place money if he's disqualified.
Now you mentioned because of the appeals aspect of it, the fact that a second sample hadn't been tested, Bob Baffert has a Triple Crown on his record. How do we play this out regarding Medina Spirit on Saturday? Medina Spirit's the favorite at 9-5. Now, of course, before the Triple Crown can be completed, we're going to have that result from the Kentucky Derby. How does that impact the horse, the owner, in terms of, is it a Kentucky Derby winner in the breeding community? What kind of money is made or lost with this, whether or not you're able to retain this title? You won the race, people saw it, people are going to remember Medina Spirit, but what's the ripple effect?
Well, officially, if he's disqualified, he won't be the Kentucky Derby winner. Now, how the breeding farm markets that is a whole different story. Cross the wire first is the terminology, just like they're using with maximum security. And the market will set what his breeding stud fee is going to be, and the fact that it was due to drugs, potentially a performance enhancing drug, potentially, that's definitely going to affect the pricing on his stud fee. I would say. But I mean, he won't be. They'll take his name off the wall at Churchill, off the paddock, because it's right above the 12th, 10th stall there right now. But it'll be removed once that happens.
So Medina Spirit 9-5 favorite right now. Bob Baffert's other horse in the race, Concert Tour, is 5-2. So Baffert favored first and second in this race. Again, if you can help educate me here, that 9-5 is not necessarily reflective of the horse being the best or the favorite in terms of its ability in the race. It is because it already won the Kentucky Derby, or I shouldn't say only because, but heavily influenced by the fact that the early money, and people are going to be putting a lot of money on this horse because they want it to win the Triple Crown. It's a Baffert horse. It, of course, had a big splash a couple of weeks ago, kind of coming out of not nowhere, but wasn't expected to do that well. Is that accurate? And then I guess, Gene, who do you think is the best horse in this field?
All right, so some education here. So the morning line is set by the track handicapper, and what that represents is what he thinks the betting public will end up at, where they will, based on the money bet into the race, where that will set the odds as they leave the gate. that's what he thinks Medina Spirit will be at 9 to 5. He could end up at even money based on, you know, the betting public and what they actually bet into the race. So he's just projecting the odds of where it's going to be at that time. So it's just used as a tool by handicappers to say, what is real value on this bet. So, I may look at Medina Spirit and say, boy, he's heads and some of it's math, right? He's heads and tails above the rest of this field. If I can get 2 to 1 on him or 5 to 2 on him, I'm going to make that bet because I think there's some value there from where, that they think that the actual betting public thinks where it's going to land, or where the track handicapper thinks it's going to land. He's probably the best horse in the race. Looking at the field isn't very good, which is interesting because of all this controversy is going to cause these, the viewership and the interest in this race, even though it's really not the best Preakness I've seen in my 11 years of covering the sport. Not a lot of horses from the Kentucky Derby came over and tried to rate, especially the better ones like Mandaloon and Essential Quality and Hot Rod Charlie. They're all going to either wait for the Travers or try to run in the Belmont in 3 weeks on 5 weeks rest. So having a better shot at winning that than running right back. A really interesting part of it is that Mandaloon's trainer and owner didn't have him run in this race, because if Medina Spirit is disqualified, that makes him the winner of the Kentucky Derby and his Triple Crown chances are alive. But Brad Cox decided that he didn't want to run him. Now, Mandaloon was one of the long shots I was really big on. I put him in my pre-Saturday long shot column. He finished second at 27 to 1, and he was just dominating morning workouts, looking tremendous. I mean, everybody was saying, nobody knew what happened in that Louisiana Derby. Then, I even wrote, if you draw a line through that race, he could win this thing. But he's not here, and he won't be there in Baltimore this weekend. So it's very curious as to, all those good workouts, very fit horse. He should be able to run back in 2 weeks. He's probably the best shape he's ever been in. So he had a pretty decent trip in the Derby. He didn't, take a lot of dirt, didn't run into much traffic. So I can't figure out why he's not going to be in Baltimore this weekend, especially with there's more than likely shot that he'll have a shot of the Triple Crown, or he would have one, because, Baffert basically said he gave the drug to him by, them rubbing it into his hindquarters for the dermatitis. So if that's the fact, he's probably going to test positive, right? You'd think.
Right. And there really is no leeway. And based on the stories that I've been reading with the Louisville Courier-Journal really being at the forefront and trying to get ahead of the story and anticipate if there is any wiggle room when it comes to this positive test. If this second sample comes back positive, it's pretty much guaranteed. I don't even want to say pretty much. I mean, I guess Bob Baffert's attorney has a different interpretation of how the Kentucky Commission can handle it, but some current and past administrators of the Kentucky Commission say it's mandatory, that it's a disqualification with no wiggle room. So interesting how that could play out. And a fascinating aspect to the race, because the Triple Crown's in play one way or the other. Or could be, but of course that ends on Saturday with depending on who's in the field. You mentioned something interesting there, Gene, about the field not being that great. 10 horses in this field. So the casual fan watches this, and I get this sometimes when I talk to people who are casual boxing fans. When I talk about this fight really was not that good, but the casual fan looks at it and says, I just see two guys beating the shit out of each other, and I enjoyed it. When people watch the race on Saturday, and as long as, first, second, and third are, at least, unless it's not a runaway, or I should say, unless it is a runaway, what are the things that you look at in terms of the nuance of the field and the competition level of a horse race? Because you don't just see a bunch of horses out there running around a track. What is it that makes a good field for you once the gates open?
Well, fast horses, I don't know.
Right,
and
but
if you
to
look
us,
at-
aren't they all fat? I mean, it's all relative. So I
Yeah,
guess
yeah,
auto
well,
racing's
if
the
you look at
same
the
way.
past performance, if you look at the past performances, you can see which ones have run fast and which ones haven't. And there's a pretty good discrepancy between, the upper edge horses in this race and the lower edge horses. So to me, it's, there's not a lot of fast horses in this race. That's why Medina Spirit can, if he gets out and gets away clean, he could just, go take him around in a circle. And it's pretty likely that could happen. It's interesting that he's got two horses. They're different ownerships on the two horses, Concert Tour and Medina Spirit. So he's racing against, basically against himself, but, he's got to give each horse, his jockey, directions to win the race, regardless of, the fact that he's got a Triple Crown potentially on the line. So, yeah, I mean, there's because a lot of the better horses in the 3-year-old ranks have skipped this race. That's why I'm saying the field is not as strong. There's a couple of horses that, I like. So in the Preakness over the last 8 or 10 years, this has happened in the past. I just think it's a weaker field than we've seen. It's a good chance to try to get a long shot in with, with the better quality horses in the exacta. So I think in the last 8 years, a horse over 10-1 has been in the exacta. So that's what I go looking for. What can I find that's interesting out there? And the one horse that I think I'm going to land on is Rombauer, who is a West Coast horse trained by Mike McCarthy, a really up and coming trainer who learned the ropes under Todd Fletcher, who's just got put in the Hall of Fame, who'll be inducted in September. So he's a good young. He's won the Pegasus World Cup, which is a $7 to $10 million race down in Florida. It's the kickoff to the older horses. He won that race with City of Light a couple of years ago. So he's a good young trainer, and I think he's coming of age. He's got Flavian Pratt aboard, who's, I think he won 4 races on Derby Day. Just really probably the best West Coast rider out there. He's 12-1, so he's one I'm going to try to mix in with Medina Spirit, Concert Tour maybe, to see if they make sense. Chad Brown has one that I'm interested in, Crowded Trade at 10-1. We've got Javier Castellano, Hall of Famer, on board. His past performances look an awful lot like Chad Brown's previous Preakness winner, Cloud Computing. They look very similar. He's lightly raced. He hasn't raced since April 2nd. Same with Rombauer. So they've got they're coming into the race really fresh, going against 4 horses that or 3 horses that have run in the Derby 2 weeks ago, and maybe spend a little bit. And then keep me in mind. I like maybe coming from behind, 3rd or 4th. He's one of those plotters that'll come late in the race and kind of pass tiring horses. So he's one a long shot that maybe a show bet would be to come in 3rd might be well worth it, because he'll be north of 10-1. So that's the stuff I look for. To see if there's something interesting to mix in to make a little money. Betting the favorite's not going to really make you any money. So,
All right. So you mentioned the long shots. First gate is Ram at 30-1. It's a D. Wayne Lucas horse. D. Wayne is 85 years old and probably the guy before Baffert, who was the face. If you were going to do the face of racing, it was D. Wayne Lucas prior to Bob Baffert. What would it mean if D. Wayne Lucas pulled this out? If Ram is able to win this at 30-1, which is obviously would be a story in and of itself, but it's a D. Wayne Lucas horse. Let's hope. Let's say it happens. Ram does not test positive for steroids or get disqualified in any way. That would be about as cool of a story as you could have based on the last couple of weeks in terms of maybe healing the sport or at least providing a bit of a feel-good spin heading into the summer, wouldn't it?
Oh, definitely. He's a legend, obviously. He's won 14 Triple Crown races in his career, so only second to Baffert. Baffert's got the record with 17. His last Triple Crown win was with Oxbow, and it was kind of the same type of thing. He was a real long shot, and the race set up for him. He got out in front, nobody went with him, and he went, took him around like a merry-go-round and won the race. But it would be a good thing. He's very well respected. upwards to maybe 2 or 3 years ago, he was still getting up on a horse in the morning, and while training and riding around. And he's always good for a few stories too.
I think that'd be a good.
I wonder how Medina Spirit will be received at this, because you mentioned an underdog horse would be the feel good story. I don't know if a horse can exactly be a villain, but I'm curious how it's all going to be perceived on the outside.
Racing Twitter will love it if he loses, because there's just such an undercurrent of negative Baffert energy out there right now. So, and that's why when I tweeted out, I was like, well, you got to put him on your ticket no matter how you feel about him, because he's very polarizing. He's very charming when you talk to him, and he's got great stories and this and that, but there's just this cloud that he's had. He's had 30 drug positives over his career. He's had a number of them in the last 2 years with really significant horses and significant races. So I think you're right, Matt. I think there's a lot of people rooting against Medina Spirit, and again, it's not the horse's fault. He has no say in what's been put in his body, right?
Yeah, that's why it's an injustice.
As far as we know.
As far as we know, right?
How do you compare the fan experience at the Preakness to the Derby? I know everybody kind of has the Derby on the bucket list. Is it dramatically different experience, or less fun, or is it something people should check out?
Well, this year they capped it at 10,000 fans. So, but in the future, it's an awesome event. I mean, you've got it's interesting. You get in the infield is a total party. They sell the bottomless mugs of beer, and it's just they have different musical acts. You can hear the bass up in the press box all afternoon as they're playing, and so it's really a college party on the infield, and it's everybody dressing up on the on the grandstand side of things, and it's really an old. It's falling apart, but it's got some charm to it. It's got the old old time scoreboard, odds boards inside, and I've tweeted pictures in the past. It's just. Unfortunately, it looks like the press box elevator is down, so I'll be getting my exercise this weekend up 4 flights of stairs. It's just it's an old plant. It's been around for a long time. This is the 146th Preakness. So,
do not eat any of the tainted hay while you're there, Gene. Just be careful what you put in your body.
Yeah, you'll be tested before your next appearance.
I got a little bit of a bone to pick with Gene from our last podcast conversation. Because I asked about the names, and you said it's kind of a sucker bet to pick your winners based on the names. But then I saw a lot of people pick in Medina Spirit because of the loose, connection to Medina, New York, and he goes and wins the race. So I'm wondering what name do we like the best in this weekend's lineup? Because I think some people pick that way, and sometimes they win.
Oh, absolutely. Now Rombauer, I like. That's a wine. There's a wine, a Chardonnay after it from Napa Valley. So if you're a wine connoisseur, then maybe that's the one to go with.
All right. Tim's a wine connoisseur.
I'm still hung up on that bottomless mug of beer Gene just referred to. I wandered off in thought for a second.
Well, I think all these years, I think the Kentucky Derby is always this thing I've thought maybe I'd like to go to, and then. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, it's probably easier and, more practical to go to the Preakness, and probably not, kind of to your point, Tim, I'm not going to know the difference between, the quality of the horse race, especially if there's a bottle.
You'll notice a difference in the quality of the party.
Probably. I would, but the Kentucky Derby also seems like it's sort of a party for certain people. It's a different party for certain people than it is for the average Joe. And for the average, from what I've heard, getting there, it can be real crowded and if you don't know what you're doing. And if you don't have, you always see the pictures of Tom Brady and Gronk and the boys heading down to the Derby. Like, yeah, sure. If we had a private jet and, access to what they have access to, pick the Derby.
They're in luxury suites all day. So, getting served and whatnot, but
we don't own haberdashery.
I would say the Preakness is a fun event to go to, and you can get a ticket where you can get a seat in the grandstand or outside on the rail, and then it gives you access to the infield, so you can go over and check out what's going on over there and just walk through there and grab a beer, and you can even watch. It's kind of cool to watch the races from the inside too. They have this turf terrace, and I bought a ticket for my wife there a couple of years ago. I forget what year it was, but she was in there, and they have and all you can eat and drink, and you can walk right up to the rail where the turf racing is going on, and then you can also see the Preakness horses being saddled before the race, and it's just a cool experience. And like you said, if you don't, if you're not really into the how good the horses are, but to see them and the majesty and the thunder of the hooves as they're coming by, it's a really cool experience.
Might be worth it just to heckle Medina Spirit this year. Just to get up there and give that horse a piece of your mind if you're a purist.
Gene, any more thoughts on the Preakness that we didn't get to, or?
I think the only thing I didn't mention was that Baffert did cut a deal with the Maryland Jockey Club, or his attorneys did, to let Medina Spirit run in the race, but it was subject to pre-race testing. So there's still a chance that, if he tests positive before the race, that he'll have to scratch. That was part of the agreement that they reached, so that if Maryland, if the Jockey Club would have came out and said he can't race because of what happened in Kentucky, Baffert's attorneys would have filed a TRO and to make him race, and it would have just been a huge legal hassle. And I don't think the Maryland Jockey Club wanted to do that in the paper, so they just cut a deal with him. But again, it's the fact that racing is the Wild West, right? That these kind of deals can happen before a race. It's just crazy. There's no centralized. There's no NFL, right? There's no oversight body that handles everything. And at least we're going in the right direction with the new act from Congress to regulate the drugs and the out of competition testing down the road. But there's still not an oversight body, or a commissioner.
With only 10,000 people allowed, and Pimlico is going to lose a lot of money on its inability to sell more bottomless mugs of beer, maybe they just start getting into the ointment business. I'd be a customer if I was going to if I'm going to check this out. Give me some ointment, whatever. I'm there for the
I'll
party.
have what he's having.
You have dermatitis? Is that what you're trying to tell us?
I don't need, no. There are a lot of things I don't have that I happen to take medications. Because,
make sure you read the label.
Oh no, that's part of the fun. Yeah, you do. Let's just see what happens. Adds
Performance
to the drama.
enhancing. Tim takes it before every story. Just rubs his hands in ointment.
Gene Kershner, horse racing writer for the Buffalo News and the K of CTBK. Thanks for doing this, Gene. Have fun in Balmer, and hopefully you get to chronicle some more history.
Thanks, Tim. See you guys.
Safe travels.
All right, we'll see you.
Tim Graham and Friends is brought to you by CTBK, CPAs and business consultants. CTBK is a leading accounting firm with a growing team of accountants and business consultants with roots in Amherst, New York. CTBK pairs every project with a focus on a human connection between its team and the client. For assurance, accounting, taxes, litigation support, and advice on mergers and acquisitions, CTBK is available and ready to solve any issue your business faces. For a consultation or to request a quote, call 716-630-2400. Again, that's 716-630-2400. CTBK, over a quarter century of proven accounting and business excellence for Western New York and beyond.